Welcome to The Front Garden, brought to you by Straightcurve Australia, leaders in precision engineered steel garden edging systems, built for speed, strength and finish.
And welcome to the Front Garden podcast, brought to you by Landscaping Victoria and Straightcurve Garden Edging. This is a podcast that talks about all things landscaping, from on the ground to designing those wonderful gardens. My name is Adam Hompas and I'm your host. And today we have Greg Palmer and Karen Dickson, co-directors of Ayus Landscapes. Just want to get a bit of a background on how Ayus came to fruition, how it started.
It's a long story. I'll try and keep it brief. So I started my apprenticeship as a nurseryman in a retail nursery, which was a brilliant grounding for me because it gave me a chance to experience and learn plants. So in this particular retail nursery, old school, we would put signs on every plant block. So it would be the botanical name, a common name, and then a description. So as you're wandering around watering all these things, you would stand and read them. And so I got to know plants really well just from that. Yeah. So experiencing that, and then obviously in the retail sector, you actually have to sell things. And so you also need to know what goes with what. So that's going to grow with that, that's going to grow with that, that's going to look good with that, which helps when you come to putting a garden together because you're already well-versed in companion planting, but also what actually works aesthetically. So that was a brilliant grounding for me. And then also, as I said, having to sell to people is also a nice grounding when we come to selling a design. Because again, that's what you're doing. You're selling your design to someone. It's no different to selling a retail in a plant or a glass of water or whatever it may be. So that was a nice grounding for me. A good way to start.
That's wonderful. And where did you do this? Where was the nursery?
It was a nursery called Black Spur Plant Nursery in Hillsville.
Yep.
Started in 1980. So then that's why I said it's a long story. And again, a brilliant guy. I worked with John Stanhope, who was passionate about plants, and he had a great work ethic as well. He was also one of these guys that ran everywhere. Yeah. And so we were always moving, always doing stuff. It was exciting. We grew a bit of stuff. We propagated and grew some plants. So it gave you it's a really nice grounding for it. It's a good
wonderful
start.
So that started. And so then obviously, Karen, when did you come into this wonderful establishment?
Well, interestingly, probably a similar time, but so Greg was at Black Spur Plant Nursery and I was still a school student and thought there was a cute guy at the plant nursery and convinced my mother that I needed to grow a lot of herbs for all the concoctions that I was making for different things at home. But I think it was just the cute guy that got me in there. The cute guy that got you in there. So I've been around this business for a long time as well. My career actually took me off into business and commerce. So I have an undergraduate in business and accounting and IT, which took me into major international management consulting firms, small businesses, IT businesses that we were commercialising around the world. And then in that career, with legal firms, commercial legal firms in Sydney who were commercialising software that they had for contract management that could all probably be done with AI and ChatGPT now in about 30 seconds, but we had teams of lawyers and software developers at that time. And it was that one when I started to go through a little bit of burnout and said, I just don't have the fire in my belly anymore. Changed over to the passion of natural medicine and traditional medicine again, which sort of loops back to plant life again and what I was doing when your real passions are around when you're a young person, and then all sorts of life experiences take you in different directions. And so through that whole time, we've been operating different incarnations of what's Ayus Botanical now. And so I've been in the background. I was running a clinical practice for a number of high-performance individuals and working in natural therapies with them. But we had the Black Saturday fires back in 2009, and that's when Greg and I started to move back to the Yarra Valley because I was helping in the redevelopment area. And we thought we were only going to do it for a few months, and that went on for 3.5 years. So we then decided to relocate back to the Yarra Valley. And in that time, there was a lot more work that I was starting to do with Ayus Botanical, as well as more recently just finding that we have a lot of business and large commercial work that my background needs.
Well, you can see that on the website. So with your two sets of skills coming together, which has created Ayus, like how do you guys manage those skills in the sense you've got your select roles of how you operate the business?
Yeah, I saw obviously horticultural-based design, construction of landscapes. And as Karen said, with the bigger projects we're now doing, there's a lot more admin, which is the one thing that I'm not good at and the one thing I don't enjoy. And so tie me to a desk and I'll go stir crazy. I hand Karen a lot of this stuff, and Karen is great. Again, her background of dotting the I's, crossing the T's and making things work. And so I probably don't give Karen the information she requires all the time, but she manages to come through the other end and produces really nice presentation documents, goes through legal documents. We did one recently that the contract was 84 pages long. There was no way in the world I was reading 84 pages. Karen did every page and had notes on every page, which was great because it basically saves my backside.
Yeah.
So, whereas I would never have done that. And again, going back 30 years ago, it wasn't necessary. We weren't quite that professional. The industry's come a long way. We are far more professional now than we once were, and therefore we need to do those things. So Karen's background has helped me immeasurably. Keeps me sane, keeps me back out doing things I like to do, which is basically building gardens. That's the bit I love.
And are you still out on the tools, Greg?
Yeah, I'm not physically on the tools as much, but I'm on site a lot.
On site,
yeah, definitely on site. I'll pick up a shovel occasionally. The guys laugh at me when I do it, and you know how to use that thing. But yeah, I'm usually on site, partly because I really enjoy being on site, and I still get a real buzz out of basically digging a hole and putting a tree in the ground.
Yeah,
that's my passion, and it's nice to do that, knowing that I'm going to watch that tree grow for the next 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
But when I've fallen off the perch, that tree's still going to be here in 120 years.
Absolutely.
No one's going to remember me in 120 years, but that tree will remember me because I did it. And they'll go, thanks, Greg. And we've got a relationship, that tree and myself. So I still enjoy that, and that's why I'm still on site.
Excellent.
Just watching things put together.
So you mentioned before about obviously the contracts that you guys had to do. So Karen, this 84-page contract, and what I'm thinking is what type of, was this a commercial industry that required this?
Yeah, and they're fairly standard contracts, as they do with any commercial job. They seem to be the same ones. But I'll always look at it from a risk perspective, our risk perspective, and if there's clauses in there that just don't fit right with how we want to operate generally as a business, and then where we are as a business now in this life cycle of the business, I'll question it, which annoys the back office teams of a lot of commercial firms a bit because they don't quite understand it. Often the remark will be, everyone signs this. What's the problem with it? And I'm going, well, this needs to change for these reasons. And it could just be really simple things that go into addendums like liquidated damages are in or out, or how you do it with a living garden. Because these are standard contracts in commercial builds, a lot of it's about 52 weeks warranties, but with a living garden, particularly in high volume, do we want to warrant plants for 52 weeks? So it's small details like that, but details. Yeah.
And what type of project value would these contracts be? I'm assuming, I've seen some of the things that you guys have done. What's a typical sort of project value that you might be looking at roughly?
I think the typical is there is no typical. So we can have project values that range from a few $1,000s because it lights up our world. They're the people that we want to work with. They're the type of, they tick all the right boxes because they love plant life and, they want a balcony garden. They want a small courtyard garden, through to projects that can be to the client $1 million investment, and anything in between, and often in between.
So you guys are doing the smaller to the larger, whatever the client would need.
It really comes down to what's of appeal. Yeah, very fortunate at this stage of my career that I can pick and choose to an extent, and so there's no. But we do residential, a lot of commercial stuff, especially hospitality, hotels, resorts, restaurants, that sort of thing. But it comes down to what I want to do. As Karen said, the people we like working with, they get what I'm trying to put together. Mm-hmm. And if I think it's enjoyable, and again, I get a buzz. I'm planting a tree, I get a buzz. And so I can pick and choose. And I suppose it works. Those projects come to us now, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's good.
And I very rarely say no because I don't need to. Most of the projects and the people, and we get repeat. So we work with some architects on a regular basis. So we find ourselves getting repeat work from them. They know what we do. We know what they do. Similar with builders. So it's a nice mix.
Okay. And what does the team look like for you guys? How many staff members and what?
I now contract everything. Mm-hmm. So I no longer employ anyone. And I have two groups of contractors, actually 2.5 really, that will come in again depending upon what skills are required. So we've got guys that can do all the hardscape, all the machine work into the final stage of planting.
Wonderful.
So I'm fortunate we've got a good cross-section of skills. And they've been around, most of these guys have been around for 15 plus years.
Yeah.
Sort of they know how I work. They usually think for me, which is nice. And so it's a nice, easy mix.
How do you find managing subcontractors versus having people on the books?
The biggest issue I have is making sure that they're available. I find it's more comfortable for me because if I decide, you know what, I'm going to duck off to south of France for a week, I don't need to concern myself with guys I'm employing on a full-time basis. Mm. Where the downside is because these guys have their own businesses, I need to make sure I get them into the slot. They'll do everything they can to help me out. They're well aware of that. And most of the projects that we do, like the one we've just finished, was 5 years to get to, from the moment we first looked at it to the moment it was completed. So everybody knew what was going on. They all knew the dates that were involved.
Yep.
Yeah, they shifted slightly because of building delays. But if I can lock them in, they're happy to come and play with us, which is great.
So you'll do the designs and then hand it to the contractors, a full plan and everything, and they...
I'm always involved.
Yeah.
Again, this is my controlling nature. I will be there for the whole thing. So
of course,
design and construct. So when it comes to handing it to the contractors as such, they're still under my supervision.
Yeah, that's what I was getting, meaning the fact that they're doing the work on the ground, but you are there on site, project managing, overseeing it all.
Absolutely.
That type of thing.
Yeah. And if I have to duck away, these guys can control it without me. In fact, I'm sure they much prefer if I'm not there sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm always there to make sure it's going as I want it to go.
And then, Karen, do you come in on the safety side of things, making sure the SWIMs and all the documents are in place with the contractors?
It's a joy, isn't it?
How do you find that? Yeah, that's why I was asking you.
Look, again, great teams of people who know what they have to do, and you know that it's all part of the industry. Keeping up with it, as in the changes and knowing what and that's where Landscape Victoria have been great. Part of the reason for joining Landscape Victoria, because I felt that it's so industry specific and there's a whole library of information there, and you don't need to Google or AI it. You just have to pick up the bundle of information that's sitting there on the database. And the team of people here, Caroline's been wonderful. She, I'm asking all sorts of questions. We can say, oh, look, I have this over in this industry. What have you got for me over? Because I've got a number of things that in my healthcare industry. What have you got over here? So, it's just making sure that you keep up on top of everything that the changes, I think, is the hardest bit. That's why you've got advocates behind you that are actually assisting and giving you all that information.
Exactly. And I think as long as, with the safety side of things, as long as you have things in place as much as you know, it's more often than not, that'll be compliant as long as they can see that you're doing everything right for your subcontractors. But with the subcontractors, Greg, for example, do you have a network and a pool of contractors you can go to if people aren't available or if something happens? Yeah,
I can always find someone, and guys that I've worked with in the past will always come and help me out. That's the benefit of good relationships. So I've built these relationships over a number of years, and if I was stuck, I know I could call on people and they would come and assist. And they'll juggle things quite well for me. And because I have 2 or 3 different contract teams, I can pick and choose, or I can get a couple from that and a couple from there. They all work well together. They know each other. They've worked well together. So it's not like I just have to have one set. I can intermingle quite nicely and bring them in and out. So
Sure.
I'm very fortunate in that sense.
No, that's good. Having a good network is really, really good and good trades. So with that, when you're talking to clients about the process and how you're going to build it, do you mention to them that this will be contracted out? We have these quality contractors.
Yeah, there's two ways of doing it. Sometimes I will have these contractors work directly to the client and I will oversee it. Or it becomes a package deal. So I'll say, and again, I'll usually introduce the leaders of the contracting firm to the client. I'll bring them in on one of the meetings and say, this is blah, blah, he's going to do this, 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 and this. So they get to know them and they form the relationship with the client, which is nice, whether it be the builder as a client or it's a private residential client. They get to have that relationship as well. So if by chance I'm not there, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The thing keeps, and therefore everyone's comfortable. Okay, Greg's not here, but Karen's here. And so that works quite nicely.
So having obviously Karen by your side as well relieves a lot of pressure. So you guys are equally sort of...
Oh, it takes a lot of pressure off me. And again, I throw things at Karen and I said she's very good that she still talks to me half the time because I don't give the detail I should, and a lot of it sticks in my head, and I'm sure I've told you that, Karen, surely. But of course I haven't. And so there's a lot of Karen just trying to drag it out of me, which is not always easy because, again, I don't like being tied to a desk. So I'll find any reason to run out the door and off I go.
Onto site.
Or somewhere, yes. So, but again, going back to the likes of swims, they are far more important than they ever were. And we need to do that. And therefore the industry is a lot safer because of it. Going back 30 odd years, I'll admit, well, probably cowboys. We didn't really take consideration for not just our benefit, but everyone else on site. And now we are really conscious of that and need to be.
I agree 100%. And even not just the physical aspect of it, but more so the mental health side of things too. And Karen, you could probably echo that as well. I'm assuming making sure everyone's okay.
Absolutely. And that's another world that changes and shifts all the time, and knowing what's appropriate. But look, it comes back to good values, doesn't it? Just be polite and respect people and do the right thing. So, treat people how you'd like to be treated. And it doesn't need to be much more complicated than that.
Exactly. And I think that whole attitude of, the she'll be right attitude, which was taken a long time ago, I've seen a shift for the better. So it's really, really important as well as the physical side of things.
Yeah. And then the younger guys are teaching me as well, because they come out of school and they go, no, you don't do it that anymore.
Yeah.
These are the things you need to follow. And they pull me up.
In the school side of things, so they've got VM, so vocational major, where you start doing your apprenticeship throughout your schooling years. So they're prepping them up and they do all their safety things. So it's really beneficial to a potential employer to know they're coming in with the right sort of basic tools to get started to help you guys out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, going back a number of years ago when we've had guys on site and there's been bobcats going in different directions, and you just watch them. And I always say, watch where you're going. If you hear a beep, stop, because there's something reversing. They won't see you. But again, 30 odd years ago, no one cared about that. They were running all over the place. It's amazing we didn't have more injuries or deaths. We didn't, touch wood. But now everyone's far more, they're well versed in how they should operate on the side.
And I think even the machinery these days is designed to be a lot more safety conscious with their beeping and their sensors and all that type of thing. So
it can drive you insane on site, that constant beeping or flashing lights. But it's necessary.
It's a necessity, absolutely. Look, I wanted to touch on the design side of things with you, Greg. So obviously you've spoken about wanting people to feel calm when they walk into the gardens. How do you intentionally design a space to create that emotional response?
The simple thing for me is as much plant life as possible. So hardscapes are important in a garden, absolutely, and they serve a purpose. But I would prefer, I'll give you an example. If we're having a path that has to get from A to B, I would prefer that path, firstly, to be gravel if possible, so you get that sound of crunching gravel. So it's an emotion hearing that sound. And instead of getting from A to B in a straight line, we just put a slight curve in it. And so therefore, I'm slowing down. So the whole idea of coming into a garden is when you find yourself immersed in it, you just naturally slow. Everything within you slows down. So if I can create a space that, again, I want to get from here to there, but I need to slow because there's a slight curve. And as I'm curving, there's something that grabs my attention. And again, I just want to slow down. Hardscapes, which again serve a purpose, if there's too much of it, so I find the garden can become less relaxing. And so, yes, if we put a bench in a garden or a table, that's great. To me, that's a space that I can come, sit, have a cup of tea and relax. So again, I'm finding myself slowing down. And most of that, I think, can be done through plant life, through lush foliage contrasts, in particular things like fragrances. So if I'm walking through a garden and I smell something, but I don't know what it is, I stop in my tracks. And I've seen people do it. And then they go, okay, where is that? I can smell something. I need to find out what that is. So stop, and they look for it. I use port wine magnolia a lot in gardens for that exact reason. It's a very insignificant flower, but the fragrance is stunning. But you have to search for it. So you're wandering around, you smell this, smells like bubblegum, and then you stop and you look for it. It makes you pause, it makes you think. And then while you're there, you look at something else, you see something else, you keep moving. And then even back to our paths. So let's say the gravel doesn't work. The next phase would be to put some steppers through the garden. So some bluestone billets, for argument's sake, and grow things between it. And let's say we grew a ground cover thyme, which is a lovely little plant. As I'm walking through, I inadvertently step on a bit of that thyme. Immediately the fragrance is brought up to my nose. And I stop. Where's that come from? Oh, it's under my feet. And it makes you again pause. So it's that whole reason to be in the garden is just to slow down, take my time, enjoy what's around me.
Landscapers, designers, architects, listen up. Straightcurve Steel Garden Edging installs up to 3 times faster than traditional systems. No drilling, no tech screws, just a clean, sharp finish. And right now, the first 10 front garden listeners to get in touch will score a free 7-metre Click Connect box. Email the word edging to connect@straightcurve.com.au with PRO in the subject line, plus your business name, address and phone number. First in, best dressed. Get your hands on a serious edging system today.
One side of me thinks it's quite lost in landscape at the moment is that there's a lot of hard elements that come in. Like when you do your landscape apprenticeship, it's landscape construction. Do you think that they need to maybe tie more of that horticulture into the landscape, the Cert 3 of landscape construction? Like you talk a lot about everything like the sensory type of feel. Do you think that needs to be brought back?
Yeah, I believe it does, and I think there needs to be more education on plants. And so the guys that have come out, and again, the contractors that have worked with me or for me over the past 10 years, have come out of that landscape construction apprenticeship, and they get on site and they don't know one plant from the other. They want to know, and they keep asking questions, and then they become excited by it. I'm not saying we give away all the hardscape. It's very, very important, and these guys love it, and that's what they live for. They would pave until the cows come home. But they also enjoy plants. And so if we can increase the knowledge and the use of plants in a landscape and explaining to them, this is why we do it. Personally, I think a garden without plants isn't a garden. A garden without hardscape is still a garden. I don't need to have a rock wall. I don't need to have retaining walls or paving. If I have plants, it's a garden. I know I'm biased because I'm a plant lover. I'm a plant nerd.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy. And I think that's the critical part of it.
Do you still spend lots of time in the nursery when you can?
Yeah, Karen mentioned that the block of land we have up at Yarra Valley. Yeah. And I tinker. I collect plants, and it's basically give me everything a second chance. So if I find plants in a project that are coming out, I'll salvage them, I'll save them, I'll take them up, and there'll be pots of this and pots of that, and I'll play with them. And I love that. And that's my relaxation. I'll never tire of tinkering with plants and playing with them and growing them and watching them do their stuff.
And Karen, can you echo that type of sentiment? Do you just enjoy the plants as much as Greg?
I do enjoy the gardens, and I enjoy the process of building a garden and the growing and just looking at each of the plants and how they take on different phases and personalities really through the seasons. And that's part of the work that I do in my clinical practice now. I've sort of moved out of the formal clinic and have taken it into the landscape and into the garden out there. So we built in the Yarra Valley a couple of botanical retreats and started to take my clients on immersion retreats, and found that when I was spending time with them out in the Yarra Valley, either in the rainforest out there's a temperate rainforest, or at wineries. So we do wine as therapy because we were out in vineyards. We had nature as therapy and art at therapy. We have an amazing gallery out there, Tarawara Museum of Art, and we would just be in beautiful landscapes. And I would find just spending a weekend with those clients had an amazing transformational effect that was more so than spending many hours in the clinic with them. And we're continuing to do that with the property that we have now. I roll my eyes a little bit here because the second chance nature of this block is that we end up with a lot of things. Greg's a little bit of a hoarder and we have a lot of plants that are annoying. So before I arrived here this morning, I've been on the garden hose this morning, and I feel like I'm a slave to the garden hose at the moment, particularly through the summer. So there's aspects of it that I find that are time consuming, but the real joy of being in the garden and building this garden, giving everything a second life, and then seeing the therapeutical effects that it has on both myself, it's the place I go to escape, but also my clients, is amazing.
That's amazing. So with these botanical retreats, talk to us about like how it's set up. Do you have pods set up, or how does it work?
So we no longer have the houses that we had. So we had a couple of houses that would be rented out as boutique luxury houses, but also I would have times where I would allocate clients could come up, and it would be 1-on-1 or 2-on-1, and they would just be spending time. It's a sensational garden as it was. It was a beautiful garden of bones, and then Greg created it, so that it brought it back to life. And people just, it could become as little as sitting down just watching the willow tree swaying and just having time, because we're talking about high-performance individuals that rarely take time out, and a lot of it's just about pausing. And then these retreats I would take them out into the rainforest, and I do different talk therapy as we were walking through the rainforest, similarly in vineyards, similarly in the art. Now what we have is, I had one last year and she was out, and we're doing a little bit of time sitting in the garden talking because the weather was conducive, and it just depends on what they're working with. I've got them on the weeds and putting garden gloves on them and pulling out weeds.
Getting that feel down to the earth. Yeah,
real kinesthetic, somatic movement, because this particular person needed movement as we were going through the talk therapy as well. And, the transformation, the breakthroughs seem to be quite remarkable. So it depends on the individual is the short answer to your question, is how it's set up. It can vary. So would Greg ever come in and sort of do anything with the retreats, talk about the plants to sort of really bring that holistic approach in? It's the long-term goal. So things seem to move slower than you first think. You buy a block of land and we're going to create all these things in a variety of limited time, or potentially just different things coming up that suggest that we can't get power connected at the moment. So now we have to think about off-grid solutions. So they just take a little bit of time. And certainly talking through it. But he's very active in setting up the space for initially, and even understanding some of the things that I'm trying to achieve with it. And then I think there really is a place for being able to bring various people in and hear from the expert, because I can never remember the common names, let alone the botanical names. Well,
there's a lot out there.
Making up a plant mixing hybrids that don't exist at the moment because I'm changing names. So it's better to have the person who knows what they're talking about to come in for that part.
What a great mix that you guys have got with that. That's fantastic. And obviously it's led you to do some amazing things, which is where I wanted to touch on. So you've had experience in the Chelsea Flower and Garden Show, Greg?
Yeah, I was fortunate. We did a small garden in 2002 and a show garden in 2008. And I'm actually revisiting this year. We're going back to a big show garden on Main Avenue this year, so which will be fun. So I'm very fortunate again. I'm going back a long way, but in 2000 I was at Hampton Court Palace Garden Show, and there were a couple of guys there that had a small garden, and I really enjoyed what they were doing, so I went and had a chat to them. Long story short, I kept in contact. 2002, they said, we're about to do a small stage. It was a sheet garden, it was a 5x5 garden at Chelsea. Would you like to come and help us out with it? Great, love to. We did that in 2002. Always spoke about if we ever got sponsorship, we'd do a bigger one. In 2008, managed to get some sponsorship. Did a 10x10, so not the big show gardens, but a big enough show garden in 2008. And again, kept in contact with one guy in particular called Paddy Clark, who he was actually out here recently for the cricket, which was nice. And so again, same deal. Managed to get sponsorship. We'll do a bigger one. He's done all the legwork. He's got the sponsorship. He's done the design. He's done things. But the great thing about it is it's the same core group that built 2008. So it's the same builders. It's the same plant people. It's the same. It's basically getting the band back together.
Wow.
So this is a 170 square metre plot.
That you're doing
So
2026.
This is the big one on Main Avenue, which is pretty significant.
Wow.
That kicks off in 6 weeks or so. We head over there. So yeah, that's a bit of a buzz. Never thought we'd do another one. It's a number of 18 years between drinks. So it's quite a thing, and hopefully it'll work. I'm sure it will. The design's great. Actually, a really good team of people that know what they're doing, know which way around Chelsea. And to me, it's just a buzz. It's a lot of work and it's tiring and whatever else, but it's a lot of fun just to see it come together.
Oh, there's so many questions that come into my head over this. First of all, what's the application process like for this type of thing in 2026 for the Chelsea?
Well, they obviously have to apply put your design in quite some time before, which the design was in, and then RHS either say yes or no, we like that, and then you have to explain what you were trying to achieve. And then assuming the RHS say, yeah, this is okay, then you've got to go and find sponsorship. And so this garden is somewhere around £500,000. So that's
£500,000.
Yeah. So we're talking about $1 million garden, and that's not uncommon. That's most of the show gardens. There would be that. So to find sponsorship, so there's a firm out there called Project Giving Back, and they've been really good sponsoring a number of gardens over the last half a dozen or so years. So they helped with part of the sponsorship, and the garden is actually the Children's Society, which that's the main sponsor, and that's what the garden's called, and they managed to come in with the other half. So once you get the sponsorship, you get the RHS on side, then it's just, okay, let's go for it. And then they assign you a position. Unfortunately, we've got a really good spot this year, top of Main Avenue, as you come around the corner, there we are. So, there's a bit, and there's a lot of press. I said, Paddy's the one that's done all the legwork on this. I've just been sitting back watching going, yeah, that must be tough. I'm just turning up for the Pims and lemonade. It's easy. So yeah, he's done all the groundwork and probably exhausted as it is already, but it'll come together. And this is something he and I spoke about for a long time. Yeah, and it's almost bookending, beginning to end.
From 2002 to 2026. So the team you have over there, they live over there?
Yeah, all based in the UK. Yeah.
How have you guys found the communication between sort of plans back and forths and
lots of
Zooms?
Lots of Zoom, yeah. And again, I receive emails most days or WhatsApp messages most days. It's obviously the time difference is the issue we have. They appreciate that. They take care of 99% of it. They just send me the odd thing going, what about this, what about that? And I go, yeah, it's fine. So, again, they're doing the work. I'm turning up for the fun.
So you're heading off soon. Karen, are you going to join?
So Greg heads off late April and he's there for the build. It's a 3-4 week
three-week build.
Three-week build. And then I turn up just before the party starts, and so I'll roll off, and I think my first day I'll be there the day before. So it's fun to be able to be there at the end when you've still got behind the scenes and the build going on, but they're pretty much finished. And then first day is press day and royal day, and a gala night. So that's a long day, but again, lots of fun. And you feel like a country cousin in some ways, because it's just like who's who that's there on the day, and having a wonderful time. And then the night time, the champagne comes out, the pins comes out, and it's again still just sort of seeing all of these different celebrities and royals, and walking around the garden having conversations with them is quite surreal, something very different to what we have here. And then you move into 2 days of members, 2 days of public. The last day for me as well is always a buzz, because they sell off the gardens. Maybe not so much now, because a lot of gardens are destined for rebuild or relocation for charities, but they have this big sale, and so London ends up picking up the flower show component from the flower pavilion and a lot of the plants, and you sell off all the plants in the gardens, or those that are being sold. And then these lovely ladies, they set up all their systems with their shopping bags and their little rods that are between them, and how do they carry all of their plants home on the tube. And so apparently getting the tube home in London on the last day of Chelsea is a lot of fun, because it's so fragrant with all
Floral
of these
display.
flowers and plants and things. And then you have to pull it apart and relocate it.
This one's being relocated, so it's going to the charity.
That's what I was going to ask you about. So when you say it's getting relocated, the whole thing, so how...
They dismantle it, and then it's literally transported and rebuilt at one of the Children's Society's spots.
So when it's being constructed, is this taken into account, sort of the modular system? So we need to make sure we've got extra timber members here or something, so it can be moved on a flatbed or whatever?
Yeah, that's the basic idea. And most of the gardens now, because of the heavy sponsorship, RHS has changed a lot in that sense, is that they are being relocated. Whereas once upon a time, you built the garden, show ran for 5 days, then it was just trashed.
Yeah.
As Karen said, they used to sell the plants as best you could, but most of it was just trash. Now it doesn't happen. Most of them are relocated, which is great.
So the Children's Society, so what is that?
It's basically for adolescents going through mental health problems. Mm-hmm. And so in this case, the garden that we're putting together is a space of relaxation that adolescents can come in and just find themselves. And so back to my original thought about gardens being in a relaxation sense, that's what this is for. So those that are under pressure, under stress, that need time out, this is time out for them. And they've also been involved with some of the construction. So some of the original design and helping with workshops. There's some nice glass elements in this, so they've been involved with that, and some woodworking stuff. So they've introduced the members of the Children's Society, so the adolescents in this, to come and work in some of the workshops.
And then it's going back to them.
So they've had hands-on this, which is great. And then they'll also be involved with the construction in the sense that they'll be part of the build and watching come together. And then when it's relocated, same deal.
That must feel so good for them and for you guys.
Yeah, again, it's great. The Children's Society is a small charity in the UK, an important one. And this will help put them on the map, and they do some great work, and this is just a nice way of showcasing what they do.
Is this the first time you've had them with you, or have you used them before?
The Children's Society?
Yes, correct.
No, yeah, first time. So again, being the major sponsor, the first time that they've been involved with us.
Oh, that's good. Well, sounds like it's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, it will be.
What are the differences, I guess, you've noticed between Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show versus Chelsea? Like, what are a couple of things that you can really differentiate besides the scale?
Okay, the very simple one is with Chelsea, you start with a simple plot of land. You can do whatever you choose to it. You can dig down as far as you want. You can raise it up. You can do anything. Whereas, of course, at Melbourne, you can't. You can't touch the ground, which is fair enough. Carlton Gardens, don't want to destroy it. But the Royal Hospital grounds, you have your plot. In our case, it's 10 by 17. We can do what you want, providing when you finish, you take it back to what it was before when you first arrived. And then the RHS come and sign you off. So you build it, you get 5 days to put it out again. At the end of that 5 days, the RHS official comes along and goes, yep, fine, tick, move on. So that's the first thing. Mm-hmm. You have a far more scope to do what you choose. Then, of course, because these things, and again, the advantage of being in the UK and the proximity to Europe and the nurseries that are in and around that part of the world, you can find some brilliant advanced stock. Like we're talking olives that are 200 years old that come into these gardens. And Paddy's a great one of this. He's been travelling through Europe finding the right plants to go in the selected pieces. We don't have that luxury here because we can't import them. With our quarantine, which is, again, fair and reasonable, we're restricted to what's available in Australia. Getting better all the time. The advanced nurseries are really good. But that's the first thing. So the plant life. And, of course, it's the garden and flower show. It's all about the garden. Okay, we go back to my great thing. Most of it revolves around plant life. Yes, there's structures. There needs to be structures, and there's hardscape, and there's water features and the rest, but it's predominantly plant life. And so they commission their nurseries to grow things, and in our case, they've been growing things from seed 18 months ago to get to this stage, to get it right. And then the timing's perfect. It's a bit like Melbourne Cup with the roses, getting it just right. And these guys have been doing it, the nursery have been doing it for decades, and therefore they know how to do it. And so that's the thing. It's all revolving around that 1 week. And so there's a lot of work, a lot of effort, and just the detail.
Yeah.
Our gardens here, the show gardens at MIFCA's have come on leaps and bounds. We're really much, much better. And again, if we could ever get to a point of being able to dig down and to transform it, not going to happen, I know that. So that's a great thing about Chelsea. As you walk along, you're looking down into the garden more so than looking up at it. So there's perspectives. And the way they view their gardens, you can usually get a view from most vantage points.
And you said before, obviously, the profile of people coming through there. Who are some of the top ones that you're expecting to walk through?
There's lots of the usual people that come through, but this year David Beckham has a garden. He's doing a garden with the King.
Oh, wow.
So he will be there and he's there most years anyway. So you get a lot of actors and a lot of musicians, a lot of celebrities.
Yeah.
Some we know, some we don't. Then, of course, you get the royals, of course, we do know, and they wander around, and more often than not, someone will come and have a chat to you, which is nice. And then once they've gone, then you have the top RHS members there. Don't know many of them, and they're quite often, I know back in 2009, they were quite fascinated. They walk up and go, "Oh, you're Australian. What are you doing here?" And so you're
doing a garden.
Sometimes I'd give them a bit of a spiel, but there's quite a diverse group. And so then you progress through that to, again, as Karen said, the next 2 days are members' days, but the last couple of days are just general public. That's the fun for me. They're the ones that really buy into Chelsea. They're the ones that have put their hard-earned to come and look at the garden and are really appreciative of what you're doing, interested in what you're doing, maybe ask some silly questions occasionally, but we all do that, but really love what you're trying to put together. So over the 5 days of the show, it's quite diverse.
Yeah.
But a lot of fun.
That sounds great. Your voice, I'm assuming you would get quite tired after the...
Oh, yeah. By the end of it, even the build, you've got, as it's a bit over 3 years, 24 days or so, but you start at 7 in the morning and you finish at 9 at night, basically. And so you do that, and so you're pretty exhausted. And then when you get to the show, you're constantly talking. And then you find yourself, I'm even losing my voice now, you find yourself, after a period of time, becoming a bit hoarse. Fortunately, there's usually champagne or Pimm's and lemonade rolling around, so that helps a lot. So, by the end of it, it's a lot of fun, but it's quite exhausting.
I'm sure. Well, you've said Pimm's and lemonade 3 times so far. Fantastic.
It's the only time I ever have it, but it's one of those things, you just sit in the garden and just again, I'm relaxing in the garden. Yeah. You're just sitting in the garden, relaxing.
Oh, nice. So you guys will be up there enjoying the space, obviously, together. Now, with just quickly, Karen, on the admin side of things for this, obviously the process, are you dealing with all that?
So for Chelsea?
Correct, for Chelsea.
A little bit like Greg said, we're just really lucky. There's a team in London and they're looking after everything. Yes, there's some things that we have to take care from our end, things that are Australia specific, and things like accommodation, flights, all of those sorts of things. But they know how to do it. They've done it many times before, and then yes, if there's a call for something, then we'll answer the call. So we're just sitting in a really sweet spot where as soon as we've got boots on the ground, then it'll be different. But at this build up and lead up to it, you need a local team that's doing it, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, that's going to be something really, really cool to see. But I just wanted to jump onto something else that I wanted to ask you guys. Obviously, Ayus Botanical work across design, consultation and installation. What are the biggest misunderstandings between designers and landscapers, and how can those two worlds perhaps work better together? Greg?
Okay, this can of worms. Designers, I think garden designers and contractors are working well together and it's improving all the time. And again, I'm across both. And the higher end of the landscape architect is also coming on board. The biggest issue I have is and I go back to my initial point, understanding how plants work. And I think that's where a good design can help with showing the contractor we're doing it this way to get that end result. So I know landscape architects are really good at putting in on their drawings how you plant a tree. Totally get that. Makes sense. But what about the preparation in the ground to get the tree to grow? So those sort of things we need to try and understand or explain why we're doing this work initially, boring as it is. 70% of what we do is prep work. It's not the fun bit's the planting stuff, but we need to get the prep work right. So it's just getting designers, especially when it's, in my case, plant-based design, getting the contractors to understand what we're trying to achieve and how we get to achieve that. And it's a lot of tedious preparation stuff. And it's not just coming in with a machine and taking off 200 mil of soil and then bringing in another two. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm always one that it's more important what we can leave than what we can take away, whether that be the soil and the ground that's here now, the existing trees, for argument's sake. Why do we have to take them all out? That one could work if we can treat it and we can incorporate it into our landscape, or even an outbuilding. There's reason to leave things without having to just clean slate it. And so work with what we already have. It won't always work, but integrating what we have with what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. I know what you're saying. So if you go to a site and you've got heavy clay conditions, for example, people obviously think clay is horrible. Obviously, it's not necessarily. So you guys would come through, cultivate it, condition it, put in adequate drainage to make it usable for in a few weeks or months when planting comes. Is that?
Yeah, and also,
similar?
again, being aware of what that soil is like when you specify the plants. So we're not going to put something that wants a sandy soil into a clay base. It's never going to work. So that influences your design. So we're planting in this sort of soil, therefore we need this style of plant. So it doesn't mean your overall vision has to change, but the correct plants for the right spot.
I saw that you guys obviously do a lot of hospitality side of things, and one in particular I remember I went to when it opened in 2017 was the Village Bell in St Kilda. Karen, what do you think about that? How was that project? Because me looking at it was phenomenal. How did you go managing that? How was the process?
Golly, you're taking me back a little bit to think about that process.
It's such a nice garden.
It is a nice garden, and it's nice that it's being maintained, and I think that's one of the things. So just in adding to the previous question about working with designers, I mean, talking about designers that might be architects and interior designers, because of the hospitality work that we do, one of the mantras that we've always got is about water in and water out. So it needs to be able to, the designers, the architects and the interior designers need to be thinking about how we're going to irrigate these gardens and how we're going to be able to effectively drain them as well. So great designers on that. The architects there were Techne, and they got all of that working with Greg's work on it as well. And then a client that really passionate about the garden and the plant life of it, so was prepared to maintain it. We could probably look around and there's a few other clients, whether they be residential, whether they be commercial, hospitality, that don't care for the garden and the plant life as well. And so I think that's just a really important thing. Somebody who values plant life and wants to see it living, and they're maintaining it in that way.
So for anyone listening who doesn't obviously know, the Village Bell is a pub down in St Kilda that got redone. Now, the size of it, and obviously in my opinion, the maintenance would be quite high. How often would you say a garden like that would need to be maintained? A week, few days, 2 weeks?
No, I would have thought half a day to a day a week. It'll be seasonal stuff, so you might go in 3 or 4 times a year and do some heavier stuff like thinning out the trees, for argument's sake, because those ficus have gone nuts, and then reducing some of that weight above. But more often than not, you get away with 4 or 5 hours a week, I would have thought.
Yeah.
It's all under irrigation, so that should take care of itself. And it's just being aware. So if we've got a brown leaf on something, don't look at it for a week. Jump up and take it off.
Yep.
And that's what they do. Yeah. And that's where the better ones do it. We've just finished the water side in Corner King and Flinders Street.
Wow, yeah.
Similar situation. At the moment, I'm in there half-day week just keeping it going. But again, clients that really appreciate the plant life and are well across any issues. If there's an issue, they jump on the phone and we get ahead of the game. We don't watch it deteriorate and then go, we'll fix this. That's the important thing, is making sure what we're spotting before it gets out of hand. And
you have a team, a maintenance crews that come in. I know you said you're in there as well.
At the moment, it's just me.
Just you,
yeah.
Wow.
And that was part of the gig, is that I would go through it. It comes down to getting the plant selection right to begin with, then it should just work. Yes, there's a bit of tweaking. At the moment, it's actually reducing some of it. It's growing so well, we're having to start thinning stuff out. So at the moment, I'm only there half-day week. Again, it's under full irrigation, so it takes care of itself more often than not. Touch wood, we haven't had a lot of client damage. In hospitality, you quite often have, especially in a pub. Bit of patron damage, that hasn't happened. So we're fortunate in that sense.
One final question I'd like to ask you guys. The next 10 years or so, where can you see Ayus going? So obviously we've got the botanical retreats and you're going to keep evolving on these wonderful projects. You're looking to bring them together a bit more, or what will happen?
And we're both looking at each other wondering.
Just letting it go, letting it do its thing.
Sort of answers. And look, I think you've probably nailed the strategy just in a short sentence there. There'll be a selection of commissions. So we're really lucky that we've got some great clients around us who want to continue with us. It's that classic sort of 80-20 where we have 20% of our clients have been with us for 80% of the time and they continue to come back. So we know that we can continue working with those clients, and some really nice commissions that are coming in, and I call them commissions because they are almost like pieces of art and versus the transactional side of the business. And yes, still doing a lot more work around bringing this retreat into place so I can get back on the tools and more in the clinical work and less of the contract work. And I think Greg wants to sort of go back to some of his roots and be a bit more of a nurseryman again.
Nice pun.
and working with that. But I'll be interested to hear what Greg says about it.
Greg?
Look, I probably don't look that far in advance anymore. It's, as Karen said, it's just taking the work in as it comes, and we do have 3 or 4 really nice projects that are coming together now, a couple of residential ones, a couple of commercial ones, which are going to be a lot of fun. And then these things don't happen overnight, and that's part of the issue. I'm involved from the very beginning, and I see it all the way through the architectural design, then the builder, and then post-build, post-installation. So they're nice projects, and so all that's quite exciting.
Excellent.
And then also getting a chance to play on a little plot of land up there and me collecting stuff.
Exactly.
Because I'm a hoarder, apparently.
You're a hoarder. I heard that at the start.
Yeah, so
I am too. That's fine.
Yeah, I think the best of us are.
Look, guys, thank you very much, Karen. Great for coming in. Sounds like you guys are doing some amazing things and some of the projects you've worked on, and good luck for Chelsea. We'll watch this space. Have a good day.
Keep you posted.
Adam.
Thanks, mate.
Appreciate it.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Front Garden, brought to you by Landscaping Victoria and Straightcurve Garden Edging. Proud supporters of the landscaping industry. Don't forget to follow the podcast on your favourite platforms so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's chat, share it with your crew, your mates, or on your socials. Let's keep growing this community together. I'm Adam Hompas. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time, the next episode of The Front Garden.